318 Latino. Por internet desde Shreveport.
Hola, 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 mi gente hermosa, preciosa, chula, bonita, cositas caídas del cielo que nos escuchan a través de 318 Latino. Nuevamente aquí su amigo, su servidor, su compadrito Brian García, directamente desde el downtown de Shreveport. Esto es 318 Latino. El día de hoy tenemos para ustedes un nuevo invitado. Voy a empezar a hablar inglés en este momento. Hello, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here at 318 Latino. My name's Brian Garcia, broadcasting directly from downtown Shreveport. Today we have a beautiful, amazing guest for you. We have the CEO and President of the Bossier Chamber of Commerce. This is Miss Lisa Johnson. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast today. It's a pleasure having you at our offices. And man, I'm excited to talk about the Bossier Chamber of Commerce because I know you guys have been doing a wonderful job out there.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you for being here. And can you tell us a little bit about the history of Bossier?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you a quick snapshot, as quick as it can be, for the history of Bossier City. But obviously, we are a twin city community. It's Bossier and Shreveport, or
Yes.
Shreveport and Bossier, whatever you prefer. And so we are on the east side of the river, and we were founded many years ago by Pierre Évariste Jean-Baptiste Bossier, actually,
Bossier.
because he's French. And and it was founded on Kane's Landing on the east side of the river, and Mary Kane, and then the two communities came together. So, Bossier City and Bossier Parish is rich in history, just as this region is. So, very proud to have the history in both Bossier and Shreveport for our community. And, we can assist you with that. We have a Bossier blog and .com and you can go and see some videos of Pierre Évariste, or some may know him as Pierre Bossier, just like the mall. And we did a little video series of the history of Bossier, and Pierre Bossier came back to modern day times to see how his community had changed.
Wow.
I encourage you to go look for those videos. It's very, very fun to watch, and they're quite entertaining.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out, and you guys should as well. All right, so let me ask you this about Bossier. We've talked a little bit about the history. Let's talk about, the bread and butter, the economy. What is it that keeps the Bossier economy stable? What are the factors behind it?
Bossier is a diverse economy, and of course, the largest employer in most cities are your government agencies, your school boards, but we are also very, very fortunate to have Barksdale Air Force Base in our community. And so if we did not have Barksdale Air Force Base and those families that are here, that come and go all the time, Bossier and Shreveport would look completely different.
I believe so.
Yes, and so so it's the diversity. So we have grown from the military market into the IT market now with the National Cyber Research Park and the Cyber Innovation Center, and of course we have a very large medical community here.
Yes.
And the base of everything for the state, not only Shreveport, Bossier, Shreveport, and the state of Louisiana, is the oil and gas industry and the timber industry, and we see those industries fluctuate. So what we like to encourage folks from the perspective of the Bossier Chamber of Commerce is shop local.
Right.
Spend your money locally to make sure that those dollars stay home.
Stay here, yes, ma'am. And I'm surprised that you mentioned the Barksdale Air Force Base first. I'm actually a product of that base being here. My mom married an American soldier for an American airman who, later brought us here to live with him. So, yeah, you're absolutely right on that. That base has changed history throughout
Brian, and and one of the, I mentioned the IT industry, and of course the other one is the gaming industry.
Yes.
And I've been in my position at the Chamber of Commerce for 16 years. I'm a native, born and raised, graduated Bossier High School and LSU Shreveport, and I have seen in my years of working in the tourism industry for nearly 20 years, and now at the Chamber for 16, how these industries come in, these families transfer in, if it's military, if it's oil and gas, medical, or IT, or the gaming, whatever, and then they might get transferred out, for promotions and what have you. And
Right.
I've seen many, many of those families firsthand move their families back here to retire and to raise their families here. So we have this hidden gift of hospitality and family environment within this region and within Bossier City and Bossier Parish that you just don't find that type of culture everywhere else.
Absolutely. So we're talking about the diversity of Bossier. How big is the population in Bossier? How well is it diversified?
The population of Bossier, the city is approximately 76,000 for the city itself. The parish is around 130,000, give or take, and we are a diverse community, and so we have all cultures and populations that are within Bossier City and Bossier Parish. And actually, I'm very curious to see the 2020 census and the results of that, because in the 2010 census,
Yes, ma'am.
Bossier Parish had the largest population of Hispanic Latinos per capita than any other community in North Louisiana.
Yeah, I believe it was about, 8,000 Hispanics for the 130,000 inhabitants. So it's a very large percentage.
It is very large, and I believe it's continuing to grow, the population, and so I'm excited to be here, to be able to talk to this community and to just let them know that you're a part of our family, and we're here to work together. So I'm really curious to see what that 2020 census is going to say, and how the population has continued to grow.
I will say that when I came here, it was around 2002, I believe, and then I've seen this community grow constantly. More Latino churches, more stores, more restaurants, more all types of professionals that are opening their own business who are
absolutely.
Latino and of all
Insurance
types.
agencies and accounting firms and what have you. So yes, and you can see where those businesses are located.
And they're flourishing, which I love it.
Absolutely. So fill your census out. I'll just throw that in there right now while we're here. Fill your census out, because it's really important that everyone get counted.
Perfect. Let me ask you this: what is your opinion about our Hispanic population, not just here in the Shreveport-Bossier area, but in the nationwide consensus as a whole? I'm talking about our professionals, our education, the services that we bring people. What do you believe is that Latinos are being able to bring into this country?
It's that diversity that we're talking about, and we are a nation and a country of all people, and have always been known for the land of the free, and where your dreams can come true. And the Hispanic population moving in just adds to that diversity and shows us and reminds us that it's all about family. Because if I understand our Hispanic community nationwide and here locally, it is about faith and family, and that is the basis of everything.
Yes.
And and that is something that all of us can learn from. And then once you have that foundation of of how faith is so important, and your family, taking care of your family regardless of the circumstances, is so important. Then you see the entrepreneurs come out, and you see those coming through the education system and becoming those productive citizens, just like any other culture out here in our community. So it's very important.
Would you say that America throughout the years has been losing its sense of value of family, and that it's partly because of how we are not really taking that into account, is having that family, like, we kick our kids out at 18, that type of mentality that's kind of making it lose that value of, staying together as a family?
I think we are, as a country, we are losing those fundamental values that this country was founded on, and and it unfortunately has all become quite political now, and so it's in God we trust, and that's where the country was founded, and so faith and family are absolutely critical and very important to the, as I said, the basis and the fundamental values of who we are morally and responsibly as individuals, a community, and a country as whole.
Okay, and I absolutely believe that as well. Now, let me ask you this: what is the Bossier Chamber of Commerce's mission, and how do they benefit businesses?
So the mission of the Bossier Chamber of Commerce, actually our vision, is to be the collaborative hub for the Shreveport-Bossier, Northwest Louisiana area connection agency, where we can all come together. And so we really know ourselves and label ourselves as a connection agency.
Okay.
We're not the expert in any one industry or field, but what we do know is how to connect you to those industries, or to those schools, or the educational opportunities, the skills gap opportunities, and what have you. So we profess or pride ourselves in being good listeners, so that we can help solve those problems or challenges that anyone may have, and maybe foresee what's coming in the future, so that we can be ahead of the curve and be prepared for that future growth. So our mission is, for a prosperous Bossier City and a prosperous Bossier Parish, and educational and entrepreneurial and agricultural opportunities, as well as the region.
Perfect. I like that. Now, I have seen throughout my years here in Shreveport that there was an attempt to make a Hispanic Bossier Chamber of Commerce. Actually, I think Shreveport made one, and it was later disbanded. I'm not 100% sure on that. But what are the factors? Why is it that Latinos are having a hard time integrating into these chambers?
Well, so I can't speak firsthand for the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
But my appreciation is that they had years ago the different focus groups, if you will, and they all came under one group called their Business Connection group, I believe. For the Bossier Chamber, because we knew we were having such a growth in the Hispanic community, I found my still confidant till this day, and leader to introduce me to the Hispanic community, Vita Reiner, and reached out to her and said, help me understand where this community is at, where they are in the business community, and how can we become more involved. So we weren't trying to start a Bossier Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We were wanting to do an affiliate program with the Hispanic organizations that were already out there. That's right. To be able to connect, again, that word connect, to connect the two communities together, to be able to offer after hours for the Hispanic community, which would all be in the native language of Spanish, and to so that they would have networking events, and then to also have opportunities together with the Bossier Chamber, with the population at large, and so that we could learn how to work together, to live together, how to communicate with one another.
Right.
And so we came all the way down, Bryant, all the way down to a memorandum of understanding and an MOU agreement. This is what we were going to do and what the Hispanic community was going to do and what we were going to do together. And I'm not sure what happened at that point. I think, sometimes when you feel like things are moving in a very good, positive direction, I think maybe those that were involved with that at that time felt, well, hey, we got this going on.
Right.
We're now organized and we can do this on our own.
Right.
And so they weren't ready at that time and day to sign that MOU. I am interested at any time to bring that back to the surface and let's do it again, because it's very, very critical that we all work together.
I believe it was Mr. Jordan Peterson that said at one point that success or having that feeling of success is going to be one of the greatest factors on having a commodity or a point of comfort where you're good and then you don't want to do anything else. Like you get to a point that you're like, all right, this is good enough, and then you stop and forget that you wanted more and you wanted to keep going and have more.
And it kind of gets lost. I in my tourism days, I was very involved with creating the Multicultural Museum and an African American museum, and we worked together and did a lot of research and gatherings of historical documents and stuff. Had a showing downtown at the Southern University campus and what have you, and it still made it as well. It stalled. And, finally someone said, Lisa, I appreciate your passion, but when you as a leader don't look like us within our community, we are looking for someone within our community to step up and be that leader, and then you can assist us.
Right.
So at that time I realized I needed to take a step back and know that we had, and it's the same thing for the Hispanic community, we have these resources in place. You have someone that has a passion for it in me. I've got a, I hate to say a proven record, but I mean, I've got the history that says that I've been involved with this. And so when these communities are ready, I'm ready to be a part of it as well. This is my home. Born and raised. I'm a native. This is my home, and I want us to have a prosperous economy and us all to live together and be great.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you this. How many Latinos, I mean, we mentioned about the census, but in your opinion, because we know not everybody fills the census out, right?
Right.
So how many Latinos do you think are in the area? And as far as business owners, how many have you seen are not just the restaurant owners that we see everywhere, but, professionals like lawyers, professionals like insurance agents, and, so on.
Right. I can't give you a definite number on that because it's very hard and to track. And even, at a city level, they don't track for occupancy reports that say, are you minority owned? Are you women owned? Are you Hispanic owned? Are you African American owned? Are you Asian owned? That's not one of the questions. It's not tracked. That's only tracked through a census of the population. I do know that we have many in our community, and we have cluster regions, if you will, within Bossier City and Bossier Parish of where you can find those Hispanic communities together. And it goes all back to that foundation that we talked about earlier. It typically is centered around where the church is at, and where the place of worship is at, and then the community builds around it. Absolutely. And so, that's my perspective, and that's what I've seen. So I know we have many, I don't know all, Vita used to, and she still would at my request. I just haven't requested it in a couple of years. But she would take me through our Hispanic community in Bossier Parish. They don't have to be a member of the Bossier Chamber for me to understand what the challenges and opportunities are for the young folks, for the adults that are here, for the language barriers, for opening a business, for hiring. To be able to get the driver's license and all of that. I am familiar with all of those challenges, and not to mention to at a national level to become fully documented.
Right.
And the process is beyond lengthy. And the process is ridiculous. It takes forever.
I will say this. It was lengthy for us, and we had a huge benefit of my mom being married to an American U.S. soldier, an American U.S. airman. So even if it was lengthy for us, and it was, quite a process of traveling back and forth to the counseling, to the council, it was, I would say pretty difficult, money consuming, and all you really want to do is be able to establish your family and have the same opportunity.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this now that we're talking about national level situations and actually worldwide situations, because COVID, the surprise that we all got at the end of last year, beginning of this year. What's your opinion about it? What is COVID? What do you think about it?
The COVID pandemic is obviously a public health issue, and it's real. People are getting sick. Prior to us knowing about the pandemic and the coronavirus and the elements of the coronavirus, we were seeing many deaths, and and when something hits you as a pandemic and an epidemic, such as a public health emergency, it throws everyone into a tailspin. And what do we do? And we all thought it would just be 2 weeks for a shutdown. And here we are at nearly 3 months later, going through phases. The unfortunate situation about it, in my personal opinion, is how political it has become.
It definitely has, and it's a shame that now that's one thing I saw throughout the protests, right?
Yes.
So basically, you could identify who's who by whether they were or were not wearing a mask.
Right, and we at the chamber have been assisting businesses in opening as we have reopened the economy, and I've had direct conversations with the governor's office, with the state fire marshal's office, to say this business is going to put these programs into place, and so that they can open. Do you approve it, and what have you? And we've helped several industries through that. But when it comes to wearing this mask, and I have mine here, it's it's interesting to see. We want to follow the law. We know we have a vulnerable population out there. And the government, I don't think, should feel like they have to tell us what we need to do.
Right.
If we are a caring and a loving community of just people. See, and human.
I'll say this is the multiple factors of that the fact that it's not killing over the 2%. People don't see it as such a threat that they feel compelled, and to each their own on their beliefs, man. But that's still plenty of lives that are being taken into account. You and I are standing at roughly about 8 feet apart.
Right.
We provide masks as soon as if people feel, the need to wear a mask. There's disinfectant and all types of products as soon as you step in the doors for 318 Latino to care for yourself. But at the end of the day, we give people the choice.
That's right.
So you're right. I don't believe that a government should force, that on people. and at the same time, it's on everybody's own conscience whether they want to follow the recommendations.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I think if we as individuals followed the recommendations, were conscious of the establishments that we were going into, knowing who that customer is that might be in there, that it might be a more vulnerable population that's in a specific business or something, because you can tell, you know, who's shopping where and what have you, that it's just a kind thing to do to not, if you don't want to protect yourself, protect the next person and wear your mask and social distance and what have you. But because we as a nation, state, community, region, have not chosen to wear a mask as often as the health professionals think we should, the government then feels compelled to tell us that we have to, you know, and it's all, you know, so I don't want to degrade what the government has done, because they're listening to health professionals all the way from worldwide, from the WHO, all the way from the president's office, you know, and administration, that their goal is to protect us. And their goal is to protect us during a wartime. You know, if we were at war, it would be the same thing. Well, this is a public health emergency. So the goal is to protect us, to make sure that we sustain and that we live and that we are safe. But it still boils down to an individual responsibility of following recommendations.
And see, again, yes, you're right. It should absolutely be boiled down to the individual. And not to be a critic of the government myself, man, but you see it all over the world, that governments don't always have the best interest in their people as far as how to handle certain crises. Right? I'll give one example, and I'm in no way putting the same governments in place. Venezuela, you know, the absolute atrocities that are going on down there. People are dying of starvation, constantly, right? And I put that as an example. It's a very extreme example of, you know, denying people funds to test for COVID, stuff like that. So people in Venezuela, you know, their numbers of deaths from starvation were rising and rising and rising. Well, you know what the government put in place in order to solve that problem? They decided to make it illegal for doctors to put starvation as the reason of death. So denying data basically is what it is. It's denying data, and that's a very extreme example of, you know, that. So I understand there's a gigantic rise in positive tests from COVID, but you know, the death rate still, the percentage is pretty low. So whether you're, you know, going positive or not, at least you know, you're aware of it, and you don't, you're a lot better off than not to pass it off to somebody else.
So I mean, Brian, we could go, you know, back and forth on this. I wonder too if the death rate is so low, and I'm just talking hypothetically here, because again, this is America. It is a smart nation. We have some very, very intelligent researchers out there, and so it only took them, I think that they said weeks or month, you know, instead of years, to determine what is happening with this COVID, with this virus itself. What kind of practices do we need to put into place until we get that vaccine? And so, you know, I think maybe some of the death toll and the congregating, you know, and it started in, as the first stories that we heard were in Washington in the nursing home, and so they knew how to get a handle on that. So now, and they were trying to prevent community spread. So now it's community spread. That's because you know what? Well, what we don't know what the reason is, but early on they were saying the young people can't get it. So now as it's community spread, it's the young people that are getting it. But because they're healthier and stronger individuals, I'm not a health expert. They're not having the same types of symptoms. It's just requiring let the virus take its course, stay at home, those typical things. So knowledge is a lot of it. And every day I think I believe our healthcare experts are learning more and more. Again, my personal opinion is I don't think it's going away till a vaccine is created. And who knows when that will be. If you hear at a national level, they say by the end of the year. If you talk in the healthcare community, they say it could be the end of the year. It could be 6 months. It could be 15 months. I mean, no one knows. And I think that's why it's called a pandemic.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. Let's move away from the political status of COVID. Let's go more into the business. How has this affected our community here in Bossier?
Well, it's been challenging, and so we saw all businesses and all individuals, because we were fearful in the very beginning. Yes, all of us were, and I think we all can own that together.
Yes, ma'am.
That we all had fear, and so we did. The businesses shut down. They kept everyone at home and what have you. But then it was like, then you get back down to humanitarian needs. Right. How do I feed my family? How do I, pay my electric bill? And so we saw very, very quickly how the government did step up to the plate.
Yes.
To help us with taking care of those bills or requiring the utilities for deferred payment, and and then at a federal level offering the dollars for the unemployment.
Absolutely.
Which we learned, hindsight is now, from a business perspective, is kind of biting us in the hiney, because there are many, many folks that are out there that are making much more money staying at home. Right. And now, as we've been reopening, we need those employees to come back to come back, and make this economy strong. And
so I have a quick question for you on that. That I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was thinking of something else when I mentioned that. But as far as the government giving us a certain amount of money, they did their research as far as to how much money somebody needs to make to live comfortably within the United States. And they gave you, if you're already taking unemployment, you got your maximum amount of unemployment if you're, based on the previous salary you had, and then they gave you an extra $600 a week. So that's what apparently the government believes is what's needed comfortably for you to be able to take care of your bills and take care of your family and take care of your stuff. Why is it then that employers don't pay that amount?
So, let's talk about the $600 first.
Okay.
I don't know that they did do the research. Okay, because this is the first time in at least recent history, and probably even longer than that, that a law and a bill went through Congress without going through a committee process to be vetted. Okay? So that's not how our democracy was set up to work. But because we were under a national emergency.
Crisis.
That's right. And crisis. The bills went straight to the floor, were negotiated on the floor, and they didn't go from one committee to the next to look at the different segments of the bill as it was written. So to say that they did research where that magical $600 number came from, I don't know.
I think it was thought of to be something that was going to be very short term. Probably.
Right. Yes, very short term, and to help pay rent and utilities and what have you. And unemployment rates are different. The maximum rates are different per state. So that state rate for the state of Louisiana is around $287. Other states, it might be at the top level, it might be in the $400 or $500 range, and so that varies state to state.
I will say this: thanks to that, that there's a lot of creatives out there. Out there that finally were able to get out of their 9 to 5 that they probably didn't like, and were finally able to have some money in the bank, some funds to start their own business. Man, I've seen several new photographers, web designers, and artists of all types start businesses during this time, during a pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And we're seeing the same thing. Just as we have seen some businesses close and maybe saying it was because of COVID, and that might have been the last straw. They may have been struggling prior. Okay. And that's where you get the whole story at, right? You've got to remember that there's a whole story somewhere. And we've seen just as many businesses opening, and it's just it's so exciting to see that. And we are seeing businesses continue to join the chamber and to say, I want to be a part of it, and I want to connect, and and so it's exciting times. And on the same token, Bryant, which I think says how we're all working in this together, is that we have not seen that many of because we're a membership organization, that many of our members drop. Now they've asked for the deferred payments as everyone else has for whatever the situation is, rent, utilities, and what have you. But as we've started to reopen, we've seen the positive come back because we all stood strong together, and so now we're moving forward in a positive direction if we can just work together and communicate.
I like that. I really like that. I mean, it is what it's going to take. It's being able to communicate with your communicate and talk these problems out in your community, see where you can find help at, how you can help others, and try to grow together.
Right. So, I had someone ask me about diversity and equality and what have you. And, and they asked me about the lack of equality or how did I define inequality. And it was like, look, it's not, I don't define inequality in the state that you call, that terminology. I define it as equality. Where are our challenges for equality at? The resources are here in our community. We have to come together as a community to educate. Now, I'm not talking, and of course, school, education, public school system, private school system, all that's important. I'm talking about education of resources in the community. And then once we can find that medium to educate where the resources are at, then we have to share with one another how to get access to those resources, because we can talk about the resources being here every day, but if we don't talk about access to those resources, if it's can you walk to it, do you have to take a bus, do we have transportation, do we have childcare, how do the population that is needing those resources, the underserved population, how do they access it? And we continue to ask them to come to us, go to those resources. When are we going to find the solution? And I'm not saying I have the solutions, it's just talking points. But when are we going to find the solution of where those resources come to them in their neighborhoods? Because they can't get out. And the only way to break some of these cycles is you have to go to them, and it's an education of everyone within the family.
So I absolutely like that. I mean, that's one point I haven't thought about, is bringing certain resources to a group of people rather than having it available in case they come. So doing that is it's not just a progressive idea, but a progressive action of, not just making things equal opportunity, but directly actually bringing it to those who need it.
Right. And I mean, we've talked about many things over the years, have the access at the library and what have you. Well, maybe some folks still can't get to the library.
Right.
So, but, that's called a very grassroots effort. And in this century, this time of technology where everything's on the telephone, we don't have social skills like we did 10, 15, 20
really
years ago. What is eye contact? What does it mean to talk face to face?
Right.
I'd rather FaceTime you on a digital, telephone than to talk to you face to face or have a text message. And when we get back to those fundamentals, I think is when we're going to see a change. I'm not saying get rid of the technology, but there's got to be a balance of both.
Of course.
And we've got to find that balance. So, again, this is my home. I'm very, very prideful in our region and our community. And, I want to help be a part of that solution, whatever that solution is.
I absolutely like that. Miss Lisa, finally, what are some of the requirements, or how is it that people can join the Bossier Chamber of Commerce?
Well, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call us.
Is it exclusive to Bossier City?
Absolutely not. 38% of our members are in Caddo Parish.
Oh,
so we are a Twin City Chamber of Commerce, and and Brian, I'm so glad you asked that question because there are some things historically for this region when it comes to Bossier versus Shreveport or Shreveport versus Bossier. Again, I'm a native, and anytime I go out and do a ribbon cutting or I talk about the river joining us. It doesn't separate us. Separation is a negative term. It joins us together, and we all live and work on both sides of the river. We all do.
I live in Bossier, work in Shreveport.
Absolutely. And so sometimes if the name is just Bossier, people think it's Bossier only. If the name is just Shreveport, they think it's Shreveport only. But people that are moving in here, because we're such a transient community, they don't see that. They see us all as one. So anyway, 38% of our members are in Caddo. And so, yes, anyone can be a member of the chamber, and you can call us at 318-746-0252, and you also can go to our website at bossierchamber.com, and right at the top of the website is a join button, and you fill out a lead member interest form, and we will call you back, and we will come to you. Now, during COVID days, we will come to you if you would like. We can have a meeting virtually via Zoom or what have you, telephone conversation or what have you. But we would love to be your partner. We'd love to have as many businesses as possible on our roster. We pride ourselves in some of the programs that we do are advocacy. Advocacy is government relations. So it's policies at a local, state, and federal level. And it's all about pro-business, okay? We don't really get into social issues. It's about pro-business, and so that the business can survive and be solvent, and it's about growing our economy together.
Absolutely.
In a diverse economy that we have. And so then, of course, that comes with the partnerships and the networking events. And because how can we work together if we don't come together to meet one another and exchange those business cards and learn about one another so that you can refer each other and what have you. And that's where that connection agency comes from. So I'm very passionate about it. Hopefully through the podcast, folks can tell that I'm very passionate about it.
I can definitely see that, ma'am. Well, Miss Lisa, is there anything we've missed throughout this interview?
No, the last thing, Bryant, that I'd like to share with the community is that because we are still in this COVID epidemic, and it's not finished with us, as the cliche saying is that I encourage you for schools season is coming up. It's time for schools and children to get back into school, and the school has announced today their first set of guidelines and what they have learned from this in Bossier Parish, from what they have learned from a survey that went out. So I encourage everyone to go to the Bossier Schools website and or Facebook page to see what that information is today. And then in turn, as you read that, I'm asking employers that they be that they be patient with the parents, their employees that are parents that have children in school for some of the requirements or the ask that may be had of these parents to make sure that their children are in school. So it might be taking them to and from school because buses are limited to 50%.
Wow.
And so so that means that employees may be late to work.
Right.
They may have to leave early to go pick up their child.
Wow.
And so look for those things. And again, this is where we have to come together and work together to make sure that we educate our young because they are our future workforce and they are our future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Lisa, and thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your time. I would like to say, man, I'd like to have you here more often, not just to talk about the Bossier Chamber of Commerce, but and I've been told that you regularly go to Washington and get some information. So
I do.
There's plenty of information I'm sure that you can help benefit all of us, and not only here in Shreveport, Bossier, but our nationwide listeners and viewers as well.
So, and you're absolutely right. And could I add one more thing?
Please.
Brian, I'm so sorry. We have been doing for the last 15 years a Patriots Day celebration, okay, on September 11th for first responders on the front line. This year, because of the COVID epidemic, it's called Patriots of the Pandemic. And so we are asking for the community to nominate those that went above and beyond, or maybe change their business model to help with the pandemic, if it's hand sanitizer, face mask, or what have you. Someone that is above and beyond, that is a patriot of the pandemic to help us get through this time. Nominate them, because we want to recognize those individuals. And it's not just businesses out there doing it. It's it's individuals as well. Just like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs came out of this that, they were like, I have this gift and I can make this happen.
Right.
So look for that on the Bossier Chamber website as well, bossierchamber.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ms. Lisa. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an interview with Ms. Lisa Johnson, the CEO and President of the Bossier Chamber of Commerce. You have a good day.
318 Latino por internet desde Shreveport.